So this time on Uncovered, we're going to be looking at Paris, but even better, we're going to be looking at Paris during the Paris Olympics. So that's where I went recently to go and watch the bronze female water polo match. Not because I have any joy of water polo, it just turned out that it was the cheapest ticket I could get, and it was in Paris. So what we'll do is we'll look at Paris through four different dynamics. One will be the location, another one will be the things to do there, because we all need things to do. The third one will be how easy is it to get around, and the fourth one will be, is it cheap? And then after that, I'll give you an overall recommendation of whether Paris is somewhere to go. So first of all, the location. Paris is beautiful. Out of global cities in the world, it certainly is the most iconic as the city of love. For Europe, it really is held in high regard as one of those places that are on people's bucket lists and somewhere that you absolutely have to go. Now, Paris, as you can imagine, it's full of old, beautiful architecture buildings, and that, if that's what you're into, you'll find plenty of it. You can take a walk down the River Seine, and there are beautiful, nice cafes that you can sit out, or museums and various things to go into. The great thing about Paris is that it's not made of really dull grey colours and paints. A lot of it is quite light, which means that even in the rain, it doesn't look as miserable. Because of how big and wide the streets are, your streets actually get a lot of light. So it feels very open compared to the sort of like enclosed places of other cities like New York, for example, or maybe even London, if you've been there. Now, Paris gets a really bad rep for lots of things. In one hand, it's the city of love, the city of romance. And in the other, people say that it's really dirty, you can smell urine everywhere, and there's tons of homeless people or drug addicts. It's so bad, to be honest, that there's even something called the Paris syndrome, which is where people go with such high expectations, but then get really let down. And in some cases, they've even got depressed over it. Now, bearing in mind that I went during the Olympics, and it definitely will have been cleaned up for this. But I have to be honest, I don't really have any necessarily bad things to say. I did stay just in the city centre of Paris. So I didn't really go outside of that. Plenty of places to sustain in terms of hotels or hostels. But I did try and get through some of the backside streets. And yes, I saw homeless people. I was there for 3 days. I saw maybe 5 to 10. There was graffiti, there was some rubbish, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily much different to your standard common Western megacity, if I'm being perfectly honest. So overall, beautiful to walk around, beautiful buildings, some trash, but I think that's, to be honest, to be expected, and the city that I live in is 10 times worse. So I think overall I would give location an 4. So for things to do, that's really easy. There's absolutely tons, whether it's culture you're interested in generally, or whether it's history, music, sport, especially with the Olympics going on recently, you can find anything to meet those things. Now, when I was there for the full day, I only actually wanted to see 3 things. I ended up seeing pretty much everything. The Louvre, Notre Dame, you name it, I went to it, at least the major monuments and landmarks. Mona Lisa, is a spoiler alert, it wasn't as impressive or inspiring as I was expecting, mainly because it's just a really small painting inside a room where there are paintings the size of walls, like huge paintings with many people in it, and the detail is incredible. But feel free definitely to make your own judgment on that. The good thing is with a lot of this stuff is if you're an EU citizen and you're under the age of 26, you can actually go in there for free. So that makes it even easier to do this type of stuff. But yes, if you find yourself in Paris, you definitely won't be at a loss what to do, and I would give things to do definitely a strong 5. Now, one of the most really important questions, can you actually get around? There's no point in having lots of stuff if you can't actually get to it. And the answer to this is yes, most definitely. There are tons of ways to get around. The most popular methods of transportation is public transport and then actually walking. So with public transport, it's mainly buses and the metro. The metro is the easiest thing in the world to use. While I was there, you could actually get a €30 time-limited card that would enable you to take as many trips as you wanted to within that allotted time period. I paid about €30 for that, Walking, super easy as well. On my day there, I actually spent like 8 hours walking. What tended to happen was that I'd get to one place like the Louvre and then find out that Notre Dame was only about a 25-minute walk away. I was like, walk it. And then it turns out that after that, the next thing was 25 minutes walk away. So it was quite regular. But it's honestly easy, very safe to do. Certainly not like some other places that I've been to. Now, cycling is something that is in Paris. There are dedicated cycle lanes. It's probably better than some cities, for example, in the UK, like London. I wouldn't say that it's anywhere close to somewhere like Amsterdam in the Netherlands. So if you're into cycling, there is definitely a place for you. And it is easier than some areas, but it's just not the best. In terms of cars, I would really recommend that you avoid that entirely, just because the amount of traffic that there is in the city centre of Paris. Around the Gare du Nord area or even the Arc de Triomphe, you're literally adding half an hour, hours to your journey, especially if you're going during rush hour. So if you can, I definitely recommend staying on foot or in public transport. And to be honest, a lot of the hotels or hostels you can get in the city centre means that it's really accessible just generally. So I think on the metro alone, I'd have to give the ease of transportation 5. And now finally, the thing that everyone cares about, is it cheap? And unfortunately, I've got to say it's not really cheap. So like a lot of European countries, it is quite costly and expensive. The average restaurant meal the cheapest restaurant meal would probably put you back 13 to 40 euros. Quite often you would find a lot of cafe or restaurant meals going for 16, 18, 25 euros. On balance, I'd say that it's slightly more expensive than the UK in terms of food. Just generally. In terms of the things to do themselves, it can be quite costly if you're not an EU citizen. So, for example, me being British, I'm not anymore. The Louvre ticket costs about 22 euros, which is quite expensive actually if you're intending to do about 5 or 6 of the major landmarks like the catacombs, because it can easily put you back 100 euros, £125, depending on what you choose to go to and what you want to do. The most expensive thing actually there is the hotels and hostels themselves. So even without it being the Paris Olympics, Paris is a very expensive place to stay. And one bed per night can easily put you anywhere from 100 to about £450 back. For example, for me, I stayed in a hostel for 2 nights, and I think per night it was about 80 euros or around £70. And even not in the Paris Olympics, it probably would have been around 30 or 40 euros. So it's definitely not cheap to stay there. There's a reason why a lot of backpackers only tend to do really short stints in Europe, just because of how expensive it is. Supermarkets are cheaper than restaurants and cafes, but it really is up to what facilities you've got available to you and really how much time you've got. Transportation is fairly cheap, especially if you get one of the travel cards. If you don't, it starts to get quite expensive. But I would say that isn't too much of a problem because everywhere is quite walkable. But yeah, I would say for how cheap it is, I'd have to give it a 2, unfortunately. Now, overall, should you go to Paris? I think you absolutely, definitely should. It's a beautiful city that's always on the top tier bucket lists of pretty much everyone. And there's plenty of things to do, definitely, if you're interested in that cultural side of things. If you're not, transportation isn't that bad. Paris to Lille or Lyons is very good, so you can actually get outside of Paris to those more natural areas of France and really go exploring. So I think overall I'd definitely recommend it, and I'd give it a 4 out of 5. So without further ado, let's actually look at Paris.
pas tout filmer nous.
Fais comme un
Por motivos de seguridad, no se separen de sus bolsos ni de sus bienes personales. Señalen al personal del museo cualquier objeto que parezca.
Aha dur.
Partira à la 7e place dans quelques instants du match.
A big round of applause for both teams.